All right, the date today is December 7th, 2020. This is the Pedestrian Bridge, South Lake Butler Boulevard project discussion. It is a open public forum. It is not a official meeting, so please feel free to ask as many questions as possible. This meeting is for you, the residents, for you to get as much information about the project as possible. So we're here to spend as much time with you and make sure that you are fully aware of what's going on. And so you can educate your neighbors, your friends, anybody that asks you, or if you see something posted on social media, just make sure that it's corrected. Quick basic background is, well, let me introduce the players. I'm Robert Smith. I'm the town manager for the Town of Windermere, have been since 2011. You have Mike Woodward and Joseph Roberts on here from Kimley Horner Associates. They've been working on this project specifically for the bridge itself and the design up to it. This is separate from the multimodal path, but it's going to be incorporated into the multimodal path. We're currently working with the West Orange Healthcare Alliance, which is working with all of the municipalities and Orange County for West Orange County of how to interconnect all the systems. We hope to have something finalized in April of 2021 and actually take that to the West Orange Healthcare Alliance to see hopefully if we can get some funding for the multimodal path. But about 4 or 5 years ago, the council went ahead when they did a slight increase in the tax base. They made some commitments. They wanted to make sure that they were getting potable water to the residents of Windermere. We have a master utility plan that we're implementing right now. They wanted to put money away for your parks and recreation. And they also wanted to make sure that they were starting to put money away for a multimodal path and a new pedestrian bridge. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So pretty much since 2011, when I first got here, one of the biggest things that the town wanted to do was purchase the old railroad right-of-way. A lot of people thought that we owned it. It's the big piece of property that sits in between Dirt Main and Paved Main, which is on the west side. The town was in a position to purchase it in 2019, and we did. So we owned the majority of the property from Chase all the way up to Windermere Road. The areas where we currently do not own some of the right-of-way is between North and I believe 3rd, and then all the way down from 7th to Chase. There's a couple parcels that are outlining. That's why phase 1 of the multimodal path is from North into Park, and then phase 2 would probably take it from North until we get to Town Square. And then phase 3 would go from 6th Avenue over to the Grove area. And then phase 4 would go from probably 6th all the way down to Chase and Main. And when we talk about multimodal path, we're talking about a wide, probably about a 10-foot concrete pathway. We'll have benches. Kind of think of the area between Oakland and Winter Garden on the West Orange Trail. Don't think of it as like the downtown portion of the West Orange Trail. It's got more of a suburban look. It doesn't have more of an urban look, but we are going to include some benches, some lighting, and make sure that we enhance the tree canopy. And we also take into account the neighbors that live along those sections to make sure that we're maintaining their privacy, both, with light pollution, noise pollution, all that stuff. But the reason we're here tonight is to talk about pretty much I would say a subsect of phase 1, which takes us from North all the way to Park Avenue. And that's the pedestrian bridge. We all know that the pedestrian bridge is not really conducive for 2 people to really get by, 2 bikers to get by, 2 golf carts to get by. And it's lower than the actual road bridge as well. So it makes it harder for boats to navigate underneath. So there's some of the things that we took in consideration when the stakeholders got together, which included most of staff members and some members of some boards and committees when we first took a look at this and we started taking a look at the multimodal paths. But today is pretty much the first step in us getting some direction from you, the residents, to take over to town council. And at the end of this, Mike Woodward will be going over a survey that we're going to be putting out there as well. So if you have people that were unable to attend tonight, they still have an ability to get their voices heard and get the facts right too, with the fact that we're going to be posting the video as well. And with that said, I'm going to turn over to Mike Woodward, but if you can, hold all of your questions unless a question is asked until the very end of the presentation. But if you do have a question that you just want asked right away, use the raise hand option on the your little toggle. or you can just go ahead and draft the question in the chat box as well. And with that said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mike and Joseph.
All right, thank you, Robert. So just to recap and summarize a couple of the points that Robert made, we're talking about a subset of phase one, okay? A subset of the portion that's between North Drive, which is just north of First Avenue, and Park Avenue. So specifically, we're talking about the bridge portion. It was split up into different portions, mainly for funding. Robert mentioned the Healthy West Orange Alliance, and if we can have this project coincide with funding availability, that's in the best interest of everyone. So tonight, we're just talking about the bridge itself, replacing the pedestrian bridge that goes over the canal. And the overall project schedule, we have looked at the entire phase one trail from a concept. So we do have a concept, which is not full design, but it is a basic starting point. That's been completed, and it does show the preliminary alignment. Today, we're going to talk about different bridge options to make sure that we get input from the residents so that town council can then consider that input and decide on which bridge options to move forward with. After that, we will design the bridge that will then be ready to work with the rest of the trail design, which we're not currently authorized on, but hopefully in the spring, we can move forward with the design for the rest of phase one that would include the connections from the bridge as well as North Drive up to Park Avenue. As far as construction, that schedule is to be determined, very dependent on funding. So once funding is available, then construction can move forward. And the phasing, again, it's the town council has already stated that if we do need to break this up, then it makes sense to replace that bridge first and then do the other portions of the trail after the bridge. So that's just a few points about the overall project schedule. So next up, the purpose of this meeting itself is to select the finish of the bridge. And the two options are either a painted finish, black painted finish, or a weathered steel appearance. And, you know, we're really not sure what's going to be preferred, but those are the two options, and I'll go over them. Another thing that we can talk about is the edge treatment. So along the edge of the bridge, should there be vertical pickets or mesh panels? I think I know what the town's going to prefer there, but it's still definitely want your input. Finally, there's 4 options of the overall bridge. They all have similar costs, not exactly the same, but similar. And the finish and the edge treatments can work with all of the bridges. So just because you see a bridge presented with a painted black finish, that doesn't mean that that's the only option. Of course, it could be finished with the weathered steel. And Robert mentioned that the survey and the video will be up after this meeting. So we do ask that you complete the survey, and once that will be up through the end of the year. And once that's finished, we'll take a look at the survey responses and the addresses of the people who filled them out and make sure that we have all those responses. We'll collect them and summarize them and present that information to town council. It would be awesome if everyone agreed on one particular bridge, but I've never seen that happen. It's much more likely that there will be a couple of contenders, and then the town council will take that into consideration as they select the final. So without further ado, let's get to it. First, to finish the appearance, it can be either weathered steel, which starts out a slightly different color, but then over the course of about a year, it takes on this weathered appearance. Now, don't worry about the structural integrity of the bridge. It is not affected by this appearance. And again, being that we're over freshwater, we don't have to worry about like saltwater corrosion, but this is an option that I think looks nice. Certainly looks more natural, kind of rustic. And if we're kind of keeping in with a theme of the old railroad corridor, then this fits with that theme. So weathered steel, you can see it on the left, and contrast that with the painted steel on the right, which would be a black painted steel that would have to be refinished approximately every 10 to 15 years, just depends on how it weathers. Sorry to say weathering when I'm talking about the steel, but you get the picture. It's either this sort of shiny black or the sort of a brownish reddish weathered appearance. As far as the edge options go, on the left, you can see the mesh panels, and that's just sort of to protect the edge to make sure that people don't fall off or anything as they're crossing. And they would all have that. You can see like the rub rail, the little piece of wood on the side. It's not necessary to have a handrail on the bridge, but your options are either that mesh paneling, or on the right, you can see the vertical pickets that just that look similar to a wrought iron fence a little bit. And again, those could be either the painted steel or the weathered option. So those are the edge options, either mesh panel or a vertical picket. All right, moving on to the bridge itself. So the prices are just for the bridge structure. Those are the prices that we're showing today. There are additional costs for the substructure, for the embankment, the ramps, the paths leading to the bridge, as well as for the overall trail itself. Those costs would be more fixed, whereas there's more variability in the bridge structure itself. Now, we have coordinated with some companies that prefabricate these bridges, because that's a very economical way to approach this and to get the bridge constructed, by working with someone who will manufacture the bridge off-site, bring it on site, and install it there. So option one is the company called Contec. They have the model called a Keystone. It's about 260 grand for the bridge, and it's a sort of an archway design. The second option, also from Contec, they call it the Gateway. It's a little bit more expensive, and it's a rectangular truss. Options 3 and 4 are from a company called Bridge Brothers. Option 3 is a Pratt. That's another rectangular truss. And option 4 is a Bowstring, which is an arch design. All right, so let's look at the pictures of these four, okay? First is the Contec Keystone. This is shown with the painted finish, but again, it could be the weathered steel. It has an arch. This one has the rub rail and the vertical pickets shown. Again, those options are independent of the overall bridge. What I want you to focus on is the archway, as well as the vertical and angled portions of the bridge. So this is, again, the Keystone by Contec. The Gateway, again, this is the rectangular truss design. This is another one from Contec, the second option. It's shown with sort of a more of a grayish finish, as well as with the weathered steel finish. These pictures, we did contact Contec to try to get higher resolution, but we'll make do with a little bit of blurriness. I'm sure you can understand what it looks like. Option 3, Bridge Brothers Pratt, looks similar. This is another rectangular truss design. It looks similar to the Contec Gateway. So the Bridge Brothers Pratt, again, shown here with weathered steel, but it could be finished. It could be with a painted finish as well. This is a little bit cheaper, significantly cheaper than the previous picture that I just showed you from Contec for the rectangular truss design. So if you think that these two look the same, then you'd probably want to go with the cheaper option. But if you think this one looks better, then certainly let us know. Finally, option 4, the Bridge Brothers. Oh, I'm sorry. This is option 3, the Bridge Brothers Pratt, but with the painted steel finish, as opposed to the weathered steel. So you can see it's the same design of a bridge, but with a different finish. And a lot of these that we're showing you, like, this is a pretty narrow pathway here. What we have costed out is for wider than that 10-foot path. Typically, most of the trail would be 10 feet wide, but because we need to provide space for going over the bridge here, and there's not many options to kind of move to the side to let somebody go, the bridge itself would be wider than that 10 feet. So we've costed out enough space for the bridge, with a little bit of space on the side to have 2 golf carts passing each other on the bridge. So option 4 is the Bridge Brothers Bowstring, and you can see it here as it was recently installed in a forest, as well as on a truck being delivered there. Again, that's the benefit of having these produced by a prefabrication company, that they can bring them out on site, and it really helps with the duration and feasibility of construction. So I'll go through these one more time so that you can look at them, and then I'll give you information for the survey. So I'm just going to scroll backwards. All right. This is option 1, the Contec Keystone. Option 2, the Contec Gateway. Option 3, the Bridge Brothers Pratt. Another look at option 3, the Bridge Brothers Pratt, this one in the painted option. And option 4, the Bridge Brothers Bowstring. If you like alliteration, this one wins. Finally, there's a survey. if you have if you're on your computer, you can highlight this text. I hope you can. I'm not sure exactly the functionality of Zoom, but that would be pretty hard to type up. If you have your phone, you can scan that QR code. Either one will work, and they will take you to a survey that's just asks questions about which bridge you like. So I'll leave that up for about 10 more seconds, and then I'll switch to the survey and walk you through that itself. And again, this information and the link to the survey will be posted by the town.
And then, Mike, if you can go back to some of the variations, the very first one that we showed, the Keystone, is somewhat similar to option 4. The Keystone is what was presented to town council when we first talked about the multimodal path and the enhancements to the pedestrian bridge. Again, take note that this won't be the same type of pedestrian bridge that you see right now where it's going to have the angles coming down. It's actually going to be a smooth transition. Once a golf cart gets off of the bridge, then it goes back onto the roadways. It's not going to be allowed onto the not the West Orange Trail, but the trail system. So there'll be bollards or whatever we can place on there to direct the golf carts in one direction and then the pedestrian traffic in another direction. But it does have to be wide enough for people to get 2 golf carts over it. And then as far as the rub railing, again, if golf carts have to bump into it, I know there's a lot of questions relative to the weathered versus the painted look. And one question just came in from Tim Kelly is, with a weathered finish, if you lean against it, would the oxidation come off on your hands or clothing?
It will, and it will more so early on. So once you're about a year in, then it'll be more resistant to rubbing off on your clothing. But yes, if you rub up against it, it'll stain your clothes. It's certainly for the portion of time when it's, I don't know if the right term is curing, but as it's weathering, that's when it's most likely to stain your clothes if you rub up against it.
Yeah. And again, the reason that we try to narrow down a lot of the selections was because of input that we had previously. Some people wanted it to somewhat mirror a railroad crossing. That's where you get with the Keystone option 1 and 4. Some people were talking about the West Orange Trail, how it goes over the turnpike. That's where you see, I believe, option 2, where it's the box look. And then option 3 is mostly just a rural type of what you'd see in a national park or something like that. But none of them are made of wood. It's all steel, so it's going to be very sturdy. And again, the heights can be increased, so it allows for more boats to pass underneath. Because we're going to. I'm sorry.
The lower level will be set to match the vehicle bridge.
Correct. All right. So another question is, what is the surface coating involved in weathered steel?
It's a steel surface that rusts naturally, but the rust it won't rust all the way through it. It's like a coating of rust. And again, that process takes about 1 year. And once that's in, then that coat actually protects the steel that's directly behind it. And Joe, if you want to elaborate more, Joe was our structural engineer, so he certainly knows more about materials than I do.
Sure, but Mike, yeah, you said it exactly right. They basically build in a little sacrificial thickness, they call it, and they let the steel rust. And once it fully rusts, it actually forms a protective barrier to keep from rusting, because essentially rust is just oxygen, oxidization of the steel itself. So once you can get that little barrier, it actually stops rusting and protects it long term.
Yeah. Another question that came in was, will the bridge be fully fenced in like it is now? Depending upon what you choose, option 3 is kind of like the fenced in option that you have right now, kind of like the West Orange Trail. But what prevents people from falling through is the vertical pickets or the mesh panel. My personal opinion is I like the vertical pickets as opposed to the mesh panel. The mesh panel somewhat looks like chicken wire, but that would be up to you.
Yeah, that's correct, Robert. That's an option, right? We can either go with the mesh panel or the vertical picket, and that's what would close it in. Again, the option for the edge treatment is independent of whether we go with option 1, 2, 3, 4. So if these are shown, these are I think they're all shown with pickets, right? Pickets. This has horizontal pickets, but we were mostly talking about vertical pickets. I think this one, option 2, the lower one, does have a mesh panel. that's not necessary for this type of bridge. You could get that bridge with the vertical pickets.
All right. Question is, well, I'm skipping over one question, but will the top be open? Yes.
Yes.
It's currently closed off, but again, if you select option 3, then it would still be closed off. You know, we always worry about kids, jumping off the bridge, so on and so forth. Is that going to stop depending upon which bridge we pick? Probably not. So it's kids being kids, but the open air type of bridge, I think it looks a little bit nicer than the closed off sections. What is the accommodations for the boat traffic? Again, we get a lot of complaints that the pedestrian bridge is lower than the roadway bridge, so we're just going to increase the height of that to match the roadway bridge. We don't have any intent on raising up the roadway bridge. The reason why is because if you do that, then you have to expand it. And if you expand it, then we're cutting off a lot of residential access, and we just don't have the room to provide for that residential access. So that's why we're just trying to mirror exactly what's there for the road bridge. This one's probably for Mike. What is the idea where golf carts can be directed if they can't use the path? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so the golf carts are currently allowed on many of the town roads. There's a network of roads within the town that have been officially deemed as golf cart paths. It's pretty much most of the grid network system in the historic downtown area, and most of the trail, right, phase 1, 2, 3, 4, the vast majority of the trail will not allow any kind of motorized vehicles, including golf carts. But we do want to provide a way for golf carts to get from the south portion of town to the north. And we would do that via this pedestrian bridge. So the bridge itself, and only the bridge, would allow pedestrians, bicyclists, rollerbladers, and golf carts. Then at either end of the bridge, there would be bollards that would prevent the golf cart from continuing on the trail. And the golf carts would be directed to either South Lake Butler Boulevard or Dirt Main Street.
Yeah, and for those of you that are not aware, we're looking at paving Dirt Main Street from north all the way to the canal. This is not saying that we're paving all the roads. That was determined by town council as a selective paving project that made a lot of sense because it's pretty much a mud bog down there for quite some time. But Mike is correct. We divert most of the golf cart traffic onto roadways because they can accommodate it right now. The only exception will be from probably 6th Avenue, or actually when you get further down on 6th to the east, all the way to the Grove. So you're gonna be able to take a golf cart to the Grove area at some point.
Robert, or Mike, or Joseph, is this going to be arched slightly, like in the pictures, or is it going to be flat?
Joe, I think that's you.
Depending on the company.
Yeah, so some of them showed them arched. The arch on the outside doesn't technically mean that the pathway itself is arched.
Right.
So it probably at this span, there's no need to arch it. So that would be more just if you really wanted the look of an arch, that could be done.
As long as it's higher than the road bridge, I think that's probably the one condition that everybody would agree on. And this picture behind me, this is from place in Kissimmee. I don't know if I can share my screen, but it's similar to some of the ones that you've shown here, and it looks pretty nice in a wooded setting. So I think we have some really good options to choose from. My other question is about the the foliage that's on the north end, or actually, where is this? Is this going to be in the same place as the current pedestrian bridge, or is it going to go over the old railroad?
Yeah, it's the intent to move it slightly east to go along the railroad berm. If the area is a little bit raised up from where the railroad bed was, which is a little bit east of where it is now. So that's the intention, is to shift it over a little bit rather than going exactly where the bridge is now.
The old, I think the old bulkheads are still out there too. The old timbers for the train bridge are there. So some of that foliage on the north side of of what's there now will go away, but I'm guessing most of that'll stay because we're going to be redirecting. Well, no, I guess that may come out at some point for the multimodal pathway.
Yeah, we've taken a look at it and we've worked with tree board, and we're going to be again hiring a certified arborist to see what, with the concept plan it shows a straight line, but we have an ability to go ahead and meander through if there's large oak trees, because we do want to maintain that canopy as much as possible, and also make sure that we're still maintaining some sort of view for the people that live on, say, South Lake Butler Boulevard and Old Dirt Main.
That's great.
So we do some screening, whether it be from noise pollution, light pollution, stuff like that, and then adding some benches out there as well.
Okay, and the old pedestrian bridge will come out, I assume.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good job. Thank you.
And we have had environmental scientists involved in the concept process, and they will be continue to be involved through the design.
We're not going to blow it up. Like maybe we can have a film crew come in and use it for a action scene.
As much fun as that sounds like, no comment.
Okay.
No, we're not. We don't get to blow it up.
Is there mock-ups yet for the path and bridge, or not far enough? We do have mock-ups for the concept for the multimodal path.
Mm-hmm. And again, as Robert mentioned, they're not final. Those are sort of the starting point for the next phase. And so if there's any comments on those concepts, some things are subject to adjustment. If it makes sense to meander around a tree or make an adjustment, then yeah, by all means, they're still not finalized.
And then as a resident of South Lake Butler Boulevard, we want as much foliage as possible. We agree. And whatever we take out, we're going to make sure that we replant. And then when we get closer to the design, again, we'll be talking with everybody and having these meetings, just like we have with Bessie, Butler, and some of the other projects. We'll be meeting at your homes individually, saying, okay, well, what type of things do you want? What don't you want? And then try to come to some sort of consensus of what the actual landscape buffer is going to be looking at. But we do anticipate on creating a landscape buffer, again, so you're just not looking at a multimodal path in front of your home.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's great for the trail because it'll provide shade, which is nice.
The bridge.
Right. And then with the cost of it, again, this is something that possibly can be self-funded by the town itself, by the monies that we put into reserves for items just like this. When people talk about what is the timing, I think this, in connection with hopefully phase 1 of the West Orange Healthcare Alliance initiative, we'd be able to get North to Park funded within the next 3 years. How will construction, hold on. Later, can I get more info on the plan to permit golf carts to the Grove? Yeah, we'll be working with, in order for us to go ahead and make that golf cart accessible, we have to widen the sidewalk path. And again, that's probably phase 3 of this project. And then once we widen it, we would have to dedicate it as a multimodal path. And then since we're connecting to an Orange County area, we would have to make sure that it's allowed within the parking lot, which is, I think, private. As long as we don't cross Conroy Windermere, I think we should be fine. Or Apopka Vineland.
Yeah, if we could just get to the post office, that's pretty much there.
Yeah. How will construction impact access for homeowners living on Dirt Main and South Lake Butler Boulevard?
Yeah, access is not going to be impacted by construction. I mean, you'll still be able to get to your driveways while this bridge or the trail is under construction. I'm sure there will be construction vehicles on there, and it'll be tight, but none of the roads will be shut down or blocked completely. So.
Yeah, and we always work out a MOT, and we work individually with the property owners to make sure that, if you have deliveries, if you have medical needs, everything is taken care of. Currently, again, we're working on the design of West 2nd Avenue. We have a lot of logistics that we have to work out to make sure they're still getting their mail, still getting their trash picked up, so on and so forth. So we do work with you very closely on making sure that your lives aren't going to be too far interrupted. MOT is method of transportation.
Uh-oh.
You forgot to.
Looks like I lost my screen. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's good.
There we go. Maintenance of traffic, MOT, maintenance of traffic. It's a plan of where everybody goes when construction happens, how people still get, how travel can still be accommodated during construction.
Okay. Will there be any increased drainage with the new path? And if so, which side of the path would it go on, east or west?
Yeah, drainage question. So actually both, and there's a couple of areas that are low, where we could have more of a larger pond that would be a little bit of an amenity. And so we do, in addition to the environmental scientists that have been looking at the concept, we've got drainage engineers who have looked at the existing basins to figure out where water is flowing, and not all of it's going directly to the canal. Some of it could be going north and south of the canal to some other low points where we could have some kind of drainage features where it'd be a little bit of an amenity. But yes, drainage could go east and west of the path, depending on where it is. I'd say probably most of it to the west, but some also to the east, between the path and Main Street, McGuire Road.
And we can put some vegetation within those, like we've seen with the Butler and Bessie projects, again, to make sure that there's enough landscaping buffer in between the pathway itself and then the residential properties.
And it gives us an opportunity to improve water quality, which is important for the lakes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't cut and paste the link in chat, but as I said before, it'll be in the it'll be posted on our social media and our website tomorrow. If golf carts need to leave the path after crossing the bridge onto South Lake Butler Boulevard, will the existing gully between South Lake Butler Boulevard and the path be changed?
We're gonna keep that filled in. We're gonna maintain that little open waterway that's gonna stay there. So we'll have to find a way of crossing over to South Lake Butler, and if that means extending the portion that's shared between golf carts and pedestrians for a little bit farther north to where you can cross without impacting that open water, then that's what we'll do. So that's a piece that we still need to finalize that. I think you were talking about that little open water portion that was just west of the kind of raised berm area.
Another question is, will landscaping and buffer be considered for residents that back up to the north or to the path north towards Park Avenue? Yes, we're having several meetings as we start condensing it from concept phase to actual design phase.
Do we have an approximate time frame for the bridge to go in?
Depends on funding. It does. I think Robert,
well, I can't hear it.
was saying hopefully in the next few years, but it does depend on when funding is available. I think the construction period, and Joe, back me up if I'm wrong, but with it coming from a prefabricated company, the time from when you kind of order the bridge until when it's completed would all be within a year, and the actual time when it's under construction, when they're out on site, will be significantly shorter than that.
Yeah, but I imagine that the support structures on either side will be done, separately and prior to the bridge showing up and being put in place.
Yes.
in one night. That should be interesting. That's going to be a party for sure. The other question, how wide is the bridge? Are we talking about?
Joe, did we go with, I think we costed it for 20 feet, but it could be narrower than that. And again, that was just the initial, all right, let's make sure we've got enough space for golf carts, a little bit of a buffer, and we wanted to oversize it just from a costing perspective. So less than 20 feet. But again, we haven't finalized that yet. That'll be part of our current task, is to come up with that typical section and finalize the width.
So don't go with the typical golf cart measurement of 42 inches wide outside to outside, because most of the golf carts in Windermere are much wider than that with the big tires. They're closer to 54 inches, 56 inches wide, outside to outside, because of the big tires and the lift kits and all that. Just so you have room to pass by. But 20 feet should be plenty.
Yeah, that's oversized. It'll be less than that, but I do appreciate your input on golf cart width for the tires.
All right. Do we have any other additional questions before we start looking at, surveying the crowd here on what types of finish, edge, and bridge type we're looking at? Again, you can raise your hand or just speak up. Okay, so if we can go back to the finish. Again, you have the weathered look, and then you have the painted look. The painted look would have to be redone every 10 to 15 years. The weathered look would probably take about a year for it to actually take into effect. And I think Mike's showing it here, but once you go to the survey, you can actually fill it out.
Yeah, this is the survey right here. I just jumped to a window.
Just based on the amount of people here, just so we get a feel of what direction. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just so we have you good, Mike?
Yeah, so I'll go back to a bigger picture.
Yeah. So based on the people here, and you can use the raise hand emoji if you want. Who here likes the weathered steel look versus the painted look? I have one raised hand for the weathered. Again, that's the rustic look. Two. You can also use the chat box if you want.
And there was a question about will South Lake Butler Boulevard be impacted besides the connection to the golf cart ramp? It will not. The road itself will not. Just the connection for golf carts. But within the right of way, I think some of the landscaping for South Lake Butler Boulevard could be used for some of the landscaping, some of that right of way.
Yeah.
The road itself would not be impacted otherwise.
Okay. So it looks like we have, out of the 15 guests that we have on here, most people are for the painted coat.
Okay.
Okay, but again, the survey is going to be online, so please make sure that you fill that out. We're just trying to gauge a feel of what the residents are moving towards. And then as far as the mesh versus the vertical picket, who here is in favor of we'll go with the vertical picket because I've got a feeling that that's going to be a little bit more popular.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I'm for the vertical picket.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Brandy.
Yeah, sorry.
I saw a thumbs up there too.
Yeah, I think that one's going to be really, that overwhelmingly popular. Again, just from the look and feel wise, I think that's going to be the more popular choice. Will there be additional lighting on the trail? Yes, there will be, but it will be somewhat ambient lighting. It's not going to be something that's going to create light pollution to where you can see it from the homes. We can either do it from the ground or we can do half raised, but it's going to be, again, something you would see on the West Orange Trail, kind of in the suburban sections.
Robert, I have a related question about, finish. The water pipe that goes over the canals, that bright blue. Do you know if we'll have the option to paint that at all? Because that's really going to detract from whatever unless we paint the bridge blue, it's pretty bright.
Yeah. I have no experience in that. I know that sometimes they're required to have it as a blue line, to indicate what type of a line it is. So yeah. I'd have to defer to Mike or Joseph on that one.
Well, maybe it's just something to look at. I mean, obviously we don't need that answer tonight, but
yeah,
for the view of the bridge, that thing really would really detract from it, I think. But
I agree.
I don't know myself, but I got a guy. I can ask someone
Good.
and
All
get
right.
back to you.
We'll get that. And then we can show the options 1 through 4 again real quick. Options 1 and 4 are somewhat similar.
2 and 3 are
they're-
somewhat similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, if you just, all the costs are shown here really quick. I'll hold this for another 3 seconds. Option 1, 2, 3, and 4.
If you go in the
You wanna,
chat,
do you want to go start with option 1 and ask for raised hands there?
sure.
Okay.
Or you can go in the chat box and just indicate which one you guys are in favor of.
That's probably best.
All right. Can
Can
everybody
you look through the images one more time, please?
Yes. Here's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
4 is similar to 1. It just has it's a different company and it has the weathered look.
Can I ask a question on number 1?
Yes, sir.
Does see that lower portion? Is that how it would have to be if we chose 1? You see that span that goes from the one side to the other? Yep.
Or
Yeah.
could it be raised to be in line with the
So-
pathway itself?
Joe, I think it's kind of asking like, is this portion
Right.
with the arch and the piece that extends under, could this be raised in proximity to the path itself?
So the answer is yes, but it depends. So the deck can be closer to that bottom support member, but it's a function of how wide the deck is, so how much load's applied. So it varies. So we could tell them, hey, please tighten that up as much as you can in terms of the aesthetic look, but they may have to keep it at least several inches lower, depending on, there's some cross members that are hard to see there that would need to be placed and things like that. So it affects that low member elevation.
So it seems like you'd
Compared
have
to the
issue if you're trying to put that bridge in and maintain a level elevation going across while also maintaining boat clearance.
Then we'd have to raise the approaches on each end.
Right, that's my point. Got it. Thank you.
And that might be a, a good reason for a slight arch that some of these are showing, for boat clearance without making it too drastic
Yeah, if you get option 2.
of an approach.
Well, that's where option 4 helps. If you go to option 4, Mike.
Yeah.
That's where, if you notice, the horizontal component to support the arch is equal to the path.
It's on the
So
same level as the path.
Yeah, it's on the same level, so it kind of negates what T. Kelly was saying and allows us to design the clearance appropriately with the abutments. So the abutments are going to drive the height to maintain us staying consistent with the bridge that's across the way, so that we're not restricting the clearance. Ultimately, the bridge over Main Street becomes your critical path, right, for boats.
That's correct. That's correct.
And then we can design that bridge right there on option 4, and the approaches to it to maintain the center line elevation to match what's happening on the bridges at the main road.
Yeah, and like, let's keep in mind the landing point on the north end is relatively high. So I think achieving that minimum clearance that matches the vehicle bridge is not going to be a concern. It'll happen, and I don't think that should factor too strongly in your decision about which
Yeah,
bridge.
because that's really just
aesthetic you
about the
like.
abutments, and we got a lot of flexibility to bring it into the
We can
bridge.
make
So
that.
the height is going to be determined by that.
Yeah, we
And-
can make the vertical clearance work with any of these options. So like if you just
Correct.
let us know which ones
It's really
you
about the
prefer.
look.
Yep. Thank you.
So based on the comments, it looks like 1 and 4 are the favorites with 3 coming in. 1 and 4 again are similar. And then 3 is more of the, kind of foresty look that you would see, in a state park or something like that. But I think a lot of people are trying to echo, the history behind the railroad, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think 2 and I should have said this earlier, but 2 and 3 are similar, but 2 has kind of the top piece and 3 is open.
Yeah, Frank, again, the problem with increasing the width of the bridge is if we increase the height, then we have to increase the length. And I think that we are a couple inches short of making it a FDOT bridge. So we want to make sure that we maintain that as well. For last, does the bridge have a name yet? No. The trail does. It's the Ward Trail. And the reason for that is because we purchased the majority of the properties from the Wards, and it's to honor, again, their family name. And I think, Ken and his wife did a lot for the town, and it's just a way to just honor them and their heritage. All right, is there any other questions?
We did think about the bridge over the River Kwai, but that was kind of, we voted against that.
That has a little too much history.
Yeah, it's kind of problematic.
Have we named
Baggage.
anything after Gary yet?
I always had the joke about the dog park with the hydrants.
You
Sorry,
know,
you're watching.
Bridge and Bruin start with a B, so
Yeah.
we could.
In all seriousness, again, we're here for you, the residents. So if you have any questions, please feel free.
I keep stumbling with this thing. I was trying to.
Well, I'm allowing to share now. It's just hard if you allow for a share. That means.
I have just a quick 2 questions. Sorry, we kind of came in a little bit late. We
No
kind of forgot. But the one question is, what is the current width of the existing bridge?
Ooh.
Sorry, I didn't think that would be a hard one.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not wide enough for 2 golf carts at once. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
We didn't spend a lot of time measuring that, knowing that since it's not wide enough, it would have to be replaced. So I really haven't put a lot of effort into understanding that bridge.
I would
Sorry,
guess
I don't know.
Like when we did that bridge
7 feet.
years ago, it was 5 feet wide, but you still have the impedance of the handrails. So it's probably like clearance, like maybe 4 feet.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And then my second question is, and I'm sorry if you guys said it at the beginning, did you guys do a tree survey and how many were going to be in the path at the entrance and exit when you have to like taper it out, I guess?
Yeah, we have looked at trees on the south portion of the overall phase 1 trail, which goes from north up to Park Avenue, north being just immediately north of First Street. And the portion south of the canal, we have looked at trees and we were able to avoid several and impact a couple of them, but the ones that we impacted were non-native and were invasive. North of the canal, that area is so heavily wooded that we have not completed a tree survey through there yet. So the alignment of the path north of the canal would go through an area that has a lot of trees now, and we have not identified all of them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Leaving it open for about 30 seconds if there's any additional questions. Again, this will be posted on our YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with our YouTube channel, just type in Town of Windermere official and it'll pop up. We'll also be putting it up on our social media pages as well as the town website for you to view and for your friends to view. You can cut and paste a link and post it on your social media pages. Also, please encourage all of your neighbors to go to the survey so we can get a good feel of which direction we should go through as far as the design, whether it be the type of finish, the edge, also the type of bridge.
It's a quick survey. It's one page. It just asks those questions. You do have the option of telling us your second favorite bridge.
Yeah.
So like, what's number one, and then what's your second favorite, and we'll decide how to weight that criteria depending on what the results look like.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say that, when council made the decision to save money for these projects, we are able to self-fund this, hopefully in next year's budget, but we do want to see if we can leverage some funds with the West Orange Healthcare Alliance, Safe Routes to Schools. There's other funds out there that we can maybe take a look at as well.
When do you need the survey by?
December 31st.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. And I just want to thank everybody. And if I don't see anybody before the holidays, happy holidays. Just so you know,